السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praises due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be upon His final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He deserves to be praised, the praiseworthy. طيب. Continuing our sessions on the fiqh of worship, we covered the conditions of prayer and we covered the pillars of prayer. Just as a revision, let's go over the conditions of prayer. What are the conditions of a valid prayer? شروط الصلاة ما هي؟ طيب الطهارة. طيب ritual purity and physical purity. There are two different things. We said ritual purity is like wudu and ghusl. Physical purity is there are no impurities on your body, on your clothes, and in your place of prayer. طيب. What else? Intention. Intention as in entering the prayer, intending that specific prayer. So you came to Isha, you have the intention of praying Isha prayer. طيب. What else? Covering the awrah. Covering the awrah we mentioned for men, it is from yes, from the navel to the knee. Including the knee or not including the knee? What did we say? Not included. Yes, it's disputed, then we said that's not included. So the knee, if the knee was uncovered, it's still valid. طيب. For the woman, what should the woman cover in prayer? What is agreed upon? What is disputed? Agreed upon?
Face, hands up.
Agreed upon, face uncovered. طيب. The basic thing, the whole body. You say the whole body is covered. This is agreed upon. Except for, and the face is uncovered, this is agreed upon. What do they differ in? Okay, the hands and feet. The hands and feet. Of course, we said that the Hanbali madhab here in this matter is the strictest. They said, no, both hands should be covered and feet should be covered. This is definitely safest opinion. طيب. We said regarding covering the hands, it's an easier matter. It's easier than, which is the opinion of the majority, that even if hands are uncovered, it's valid. طيب. Feet, again, they disputed on this, and the majority said feet should be covered. قل جمهور, feet should be covered. طيب. So for the woman, safer opinion, covering everything except the face. طيب. We mentioned intention, physical purity, ritual purity, covering the awrah. We have two more.
Entrance of the time.
Okay, entrance of the time. If the prayer, if a person starts the prayer, even if it was takbirat al-ihram only, before the adhan starts, prayer is invalid. This is specifically for women at home, or a person, you're not going to pray in jama'ah. If he prays, he is not sure if the adhan started or not, he waits. Because even if one takbir, he said, "Khalas, you know what, I'll pray." And he prayed, and the takbir of al-ihram, he started the takbir. Before the adhan, the whole prayer is invalid. The whole prayer is invalid. طيب. What else? Facing the Qibla. طيب. This is the last condition, facing the Qibla. Facing the Qibla, for us here, is facing the Qibla. Are we required to face the Qibla or the direction of the Qibla? Direction of the Qibla. So, let's say that there was a mistake of 10 or 15 degrees. So if a person prayed like this is the Qibla, and he was facing here. Is it considered that he's facing the Qibla? So this is the Qibla, okay, and he prayed like this. Is it considered that he's facing the Qibla? بلى. كيف complete different? الجهة، نحن قلنا الجهة. شوفوا ما تحضر الدروس. الجهة. We said, when we said the direction of the Qibla, it doesn't mean pointing to the Mecca itself. ما بين المشرق والمغرب قبلة. No, they said, the jurist said, direction as in if he was So you're still facing the Qibla, still till here you're still facing the Qibla. If you give your shoulder to the Qibla, so you say now you're not facing the Qibla. Same thing here. If the deviation was slight like this, you're still facing the Qibla. Because some people they come to the masjids, regardless where it's built, and they turn on Google, and they see, a slight degrees to the left, say, no, this prayer is invalid, all of your prayer is invalid. That's not the case. Of course, when building the masjids, definitely the safer thing is to be accurate exactly where the Qibla is. And they have sophisticated instruments to tell where the Qibla is. So don't use your mobile phone thinking that you'll be able to pinpoint the Qibla. They have much more accurate instruments to tell where the Qibla is. طيب. Even let's say for argument's sake, it was a slight deviation to the left or to the right, still you're still facing the Qibla. And this is the understanding of the jurists, the fuqaha from the hadith, بين المشرق والمغرب قبلة. And they were in Medina. بين المشرق والمغرب قبلة. So the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, all of this is Qibla. طيب. Okay, we covered this. So then we spoke about the pillars of prayer. Pillars of prayer. طيب, who can tell me what the pillars of prayer? First of all, we said there are 14. 14. But let's start from the first pillar. What is the first pillar? Yes.
Standing up.
Ahsant. Yes. Standing up. Then Takbirat al-Ihram. Okay. Surah al-Fatiha is a pillar. Yes. Ruku' is a pillar.
Standing up from ruku.
Rising from ruku'. Yes. We said rising because if you lift your head like this, you're rising. And then standing up straight after ruku'. So 6. Going down for sujood. طيب, that's 1. Okay, again, rising from sujood, that's 1, and then sitting. طيب, that's 9. Second sujood, sujood. It's a pillar, خلاص. So, okay. Sitting for which tashahhud? Final tashahhud. Be careful. Middle tashahhud is not a pillar. And based on this, you will see when we talk about sujood sahw. So final tashahhud. Sitting for final tashahhud. So the final tashahhud and sitting for the final tashahhud. What else? Huh? The tashahhud, we said tashahhud. طيب, what else? The 2 taslimas. The 2 taslimas. We said sitting. 2 taslimas. And we have 2 more. What are the 2 more? ها؟ لا معها التشهد. مع إن في بعض المتون فرقت بس معها. Okay, doing it in the order, doing all these actions in the order of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he prayed, and the final one is طمأنينة. طمأنينة. طمأنينة, as in every pillar you have to stay still for at least a moment of time. And we had this guy is not attending today, but he was demonstrating for us. Doing, for example, ruku' without طمأنينة, or rising from ruku'. This is very common. So a person will be doing ruku', he'll be rising up. تعال تقدر تسوي لنا روينا كيف هي بدون طمأنينة يعني بدون طمأنينة رفع من الركوع بدون طمأنينة بعدين نزول للسجود. طيب هذا الركوع خلاص هذا طمأنينة. طيب rising from ركوع أيوة سي لكن مع أنه هني أنت خلاص you stood up still for a moment, that's good. لا without standing straight. Directly going down. And going up like this and going down without standing still. So, okay? Yeah. This is not to do. This is the wrong way to do. صح تمام. طيب. جزاك الله خير. So here there was no طمأنينة. The brother he rose up, directly he went for sujood. So some people, they rise from ruku' without even standing. At least stand for a moment of time. He says, سمع الله وحمده. Has 1 moment he stood up, he can go for sujood, no problem. But without even waiting a moment, saying سمع الله وحمده, going directly for sujood, he missed 1 pillar of prayer. And it was said, hadith al-musī' li salati, the person who prayed in a incorrect way, that the Messenger Muhammad told him, repeat your prayer. They said this was the issue. He did not pause. He did not pause for a moment in every pillar. Yes, these are the pillars. This was all revision. But subhanAllah, since I did not come. And also of the revision, we mentioned the obligations. So conditions, pillars, the obligations. What are the obligations of prayer? They are 8. It's simple. It's not the conditions and it's not the pillars. Everything else Not everything, because we have sunnahs. The obligations, all the takbirs. All the takbirs except for which takbir? Takbirat al-ihram. Takbirat al-ihram is not condition, pillar. Don't make a big mistake. Huh? Condition is pillar. Okay. So takbirat al-ihram is a pillar. طيب. All the other takbir. So takbir for sujood considered obligation, wajiba. Takbir for rising from ruku', takbir for rising from tashahud. Why all takbir? خلاص, all takbirs are wajiba. طيب. The tasbih in ruku', the tasbih in sujood, at least once is wajib. So in the ruku', if a person in the ruku' did not say one tasbih, no, it's a sin. He has to say at least once Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. In sujood, at least once to say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. Also, when sitting down between the two tashahud, saying Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli. Once, obligation. More than that, it's mustahab. It's preferred. So the more that you say, so let's say you wanted to prolong your prayer. And this is an advice. Some people might do qiyam with reciting 2 juz of the Quran or 3 juz in the Quran. So when standing up straight, they might recite 1 juz. And each unit, he might recite 1 juz. So it doesn't make sense. If you're going to recite a lot while standing up, in ruku', you have to prolong your ruku'. You have to prolong your sujood. Where did we get this from? The Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the companions said, رَمَقْتُ الصَّلَاةَ خَلْفَ النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم فَوَجَدْتُ قِيَامَهُ وركوعه ورفعه من الركوع وسجدته وسجوده سواء or قريبا من السواء. So all the pillars, the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prolonged. If he prolonged his qiyam, he will prolong his sujood, he will prolong his ruku'. But not to the same extent, but longer. Yani, if he recited more on qiyam, you will increase in ruku', you will increase in sujood. Now the question is, if I increase in ruku', what do I say? First of all, even if you said once Subhan Rabbi al-Azim and you stayed in ruku', you're rewarded for this. You're still in a position of worship. But it's preferred for you to increase in tasbih. So say Subhan Rabbi al-Azim, Subhan Rabbi al-Azim, Subhan Rabbi al-Azim. 4 times, 10 times. As long as in your ruku' you can keep on doing Subhan Rabbi al-Azim. You can also recite some of the supplications, Subuh Quddus, شو الأدعية؟ سبحانك نعم. You can, any of the supplications in ruku', the supplications in sujood, you can do this. In sujood, same thing. Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. طيب, sitting between the 2 sajdas, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli, Rabbi ghfirli. طيب. Okay. Saying Sami Allahu liman hamida, obligation. So all the subhanallah adhkar of the prayer, once is considered of the wajibat. Tasbih in sujood, we mentioned this. Saying Rabbi ghfirli, we mentioned this. طيب. Here was the important part that many people make a mistake in. Remember when we said, what's the ruling of the final tashahhud? Final tashahhud is rukun. Al-julus, sitting for the final tashahhud, is rukun. طيب. So be careful, final tashahhud. So if we say Salat al-Fajr, how many tashahhuds we have Salat al-Fajr? 1. طيب, is this rukun or is it wajib? Rukun, ahsant. Yes, it's rukun, obviously, because it has only 1. It is the final tashahhud. طيب. In dhuhr prayer, the first tashahhud, is it rukun or is it wajib? What did you say? Wajib. Okay, wajib. Yes, it's wajib. It's not a rukun. طيب. Now, when we say differentiating between wajibat, pillars, and obligations, if a person leaves an obligation, طيب, or if he leaves an obligation, a wajib, intentionally, his prayer is invalid. Intentionally. Yani, for example, regarding the tasbih and ruku' and tasbih and sujood, what we mentioned is the Hanbali madhab. But some madhabs might find this aslan preferred. The whole tasbih is preferred. The whole Subhan Rabbi al-Azim is preferred. But let's say something that they agree upon. Like, for example, the first julus for tashahhud. So sitting for the first. So if a person said in Salat al-Dhuhr, after the second unit, he intentionally stood up and did not sit for tashahhud intentionally. From the start, he knows that there's a tashahhud and he stood up without going back and he did it intentionally, his whole prayer is invalid. His whole prayer is invalid. طيب, what if while sitting down, while rising from the second rak'ah, he forgot, and on the way standing up, he remembered, but then he continued standing up. Here it's different. He remembered while standing up, so he forgot. He rose while in a state of forgetfulness. He didn't do it intentionally, but on the way up, he remembered. Khalas, let him continue standing up, no problem. I'll answer your question. So let him continue standing up, no problem. Okay? So while standing up, if he remembered, this we don't say intentionally he left this. No, he left it before that. He forgot and he stood. طيب, in this case, did he leave a rukn or did he leave an obligation? Obligation, ahsant. He left an obligation. Intentionally or in a state of forgetfulness? Forgetfulness. So it's considered khalas. He doesn't need to go back and do it. And sujood al-sahw will suffice him. This is leaving an obligation. طيب. He asked first. Ask.
Can you go back to tashahhud if you remember that you are rising up?
Good question. A good question. If we're talking about first tashahhud is an obligation. If you stood up straight, you do not go back for an obligation. What did we say on standing up straight? It's considered you told me. What is standing up straight? What did you say? Pillar, ahsant. Because if he said, I don't know, he said, then he gave you the answer before. So standing up straight is a pillar. You said it, صح? Okay. So if a person stood up, he is in a pillar. He cannot move from a pillar for an obligation. Sitting for tashahhud is an obligation. He cannot leave a pillar for an obligation. Okay? So if he stood up straight, you do not go back for tashahhud, or you do not go back for any obligation. طيب. Now, leaving a pillar, yes.
What if you missed an obligation and then you sujood sahw as well?
A state of he forgot? No problem. His prayer is valid. Okay? So here, if he missed a pillar, let's say he missed a pillar. Let's say, for example, he missed in the second unit, he only did one sajda. So he, from Sami Allahu liman hamidah, then he went for one sujood, and then he rose up and he sat for tashahhud. How many pillars did he miss? Two? What are the two?
Sitting in between of them,
Ahsant.
you missed one, right?
Yes, what else?
Sunshine.
Ahsant. Ahsant. If I had a prize, I'll give it to you. Khalas, today you get the prize. I'll give you dua. مسكين المشايخ they give dua, they don't have prizes. طيب. طيب. الله يفتح عليك. So he missed two pillars. If a person did sujood and then after sujood he did only one sujood, then he rose up and sat for tashahhud, he missed two pillars. طيب. Then he stood up. After standing up, let's say that he remembered that he missed one whole sajda and he missed that. Do we say, khalas, Shaykh, you missed them, so okay, continue your prayer and do sujood al-sahw? No. But he left a pillar. Okay? If he left an obligation, we would say no problem. But leaving a pillar, if he remembered, he goes back to it. He goes back to it and completes it. So in this state, he stood up. He remembered, they only did one sajda. So you go back, okay, and you sit. So this is the sitting between the two sujood. And then you do your sujood again, and then you continue your prayer. You sit for tashahhud. You continue your prayer. Okay? Now, the details of this, when can you go back to a missed pillar, we'll mention the dispute, inshallah, now. Inshallah, today. Okay, so this is leaving a pillar and leaving an obligation. If a person, so obligations, if they were left out of ignorance, or a person forgot, khalas, he's considered sujood al-sahw will suffice. But if he left a pillar, it does not suffice him. If he left a pillar, it does not suffice him. طيب. The preferred sayings, the mustahabbat of prayer, the opening supplication after takbir, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك تبارك اسمك, or اللهم باعد بيني وبين خطاياي. Seeking refuge, saying أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Okay, and it's done only in the first unit. Seeking refuge, أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. It's said only in the first unit. Or you can say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, no problem. Saying بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, طيب, they said it's preferred. So they did not count it of the Fatiha. Some of them counted it from the Fatiha, some did not. But if they agreed on saying it, the dispute among them, do we say it out loud or not? The majority said no, you say it in your say. And they say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen when you recite. Saying Ameen is also preferred. Saying Ameen. Reciting a chapter after the Fatiha. So let's say in the first 2 units, we recite the Fatiha and we recite Surah Qasira, or we recite some verses of the Quran. Even though the action of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he do? Most of the time he would recite Surah Al-Fatiha and then he would recite a full chapter, a full surah. But that does not mean that reciting some verses of the Quran is not permissible. No, it's permissible. It's permissible. He did فَقْرَوْا مَا تَيَسَّرَ الْقُرْآنِ, فَقْرَوْا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْهُ. طيب. And also the Messenger Muhammad did sometimes recite some verses. But most of the time he would recite a full surah. طيب. Reciting out loud for the Imam, we did not mention this. Is this an obligation or is this a pillar? But if an Imam doesn't recite out loud, he's not fit to be an Imam. But let's say for argument's sake, people were praying and the Imam in Maghrib prayer did not recite out loud.
It's wajib, right?
Did we say it's wajib? We just mentioned the obligations and we mentioned the pillars. So it's mustahab. They consider this mustahab. طيب, saying ربنا ولك الحمد, also mustahab. Saying Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la more than once, mustahab, preferred. طيب. And then we have the preferred actions. These are the sayings in prayer, the preferred actions. Raising your hands. طيب, for opening takbir. Is this wajib, mustahab, or is it a pillar? So if a person said Allahu Akbar for takbir al-ihram, is this prayer valid or not? But he did not raise his hands.
It's valid?
It's valid, yes. Because the takbir is saying Allahu Akbar. Raising hands is mustahab. طيب. Placing the right hand over the left. طيب. Hands are placed below the navel. We're talking the Hanbali madhab, below the navel. طيب, below the navel. To look at the place of sujood. This is the majority, to look at the place of sujood in prayer. There is another madhab which is even very strong argument they have. They say there's another opinion in prayer. Where do we look? In prayer, most of them, the Jumhur, they say you look at the place of sujood. طيب, so there's a madhab, Maliki madhab. What do they say? Does anyone know? Where do we look? Of course, it's not going to be up. Looking up is haram. In prayer, it's prohibited to look up. Huh? Legs like this? It's too hard on the neck. How will you do? Where do we look? No, it's not the legs. Are you looking in front? And subhanAllah, I used to see my father, and the old men, they always used to look for us. SubhanAllah, they don't know how to pray. Even though then, when we grow up, this is the Maliki madhab, to look in front. And they have a good argument, that the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ, in some of the hadith, he was looking in front of him. They have a sound opinion. And some people said, no, this is even a stronger opinion, to look in front. To look in front, that's the Maliki madhab, but also that's the action of the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ in many hadith. Where is the hadith in looking at mawdu' al-sujud? But looking in front, we have, the hadith in Sahih Muslim, where the vision of hellfire and the vision of paradise, it was in front of him. He was looking in front. So, يعني that's also يعني a strong argument. So if you see someone looking in front, doesn't mean that he's not paying attention. He's following maybe this madhab. طيب looking in front, يعني it's also يعني an opinion. طيب. No, some people, but looking in front doesn't mean like this. That's not looking in front. That's a person is not in prayer يعني. But looking in front is like this. This is looking in front. طيب. طيب. Of the preferred actions, okay, to look at the place of sujood. Hanbali madhab, majority to look at the place of sujood. Straighten the back in ruku'. اركع بدون ما first of all don't straighten. خلي الركوع التعبان. هذا الحين not straighten. هذا good. Okay like this. طيب شوف تحت. طيب for example this is not straightening the back. الحين straighten your back in الركوع. هذا الحين هذا طيب اوكي. خفت تطيح.
لا كان يصفون انه الماء استقر.
نعم الماء طبعا انت الماء نزل اذا كذا يعني ركوع شوف ركوع كذا خلي سيده اوكي طيب سوي يلا استقر الماء انت لو سويت كذا الماء انكب يلا بسم الله ايوه تمام ما شاء الله تمام ايوه كذا straightening the back الركوع this is مستحب. طيب تعال the body parts should not be touching the ground without first of all before that listen in sujood it's preferred, and they mentioned this even the madhab, when doing sujood it's preferred that the body parts touching the ground, there should not be any barrier between them and the ground except the knees. Other than this they say, for example, the forehead, the nose, both hands, the feet, they should be touching. So a person, for example, usually where's the problem? On the forehead, so like this. So you see, like our fathers, they used to do this before sujood. They used to uncover. They say this is, subhanallah, yani, even the madhab said this is what's preferred to be done, to be touching it directly. طيب. To widen the placement of hands in sujood, to widen the placement of hands in sujood. Okay, yes. And moving, so wide and so sujood. Look, his arms are away from his torso. His arms are far away from his torso. حط يدك جنب قرب يدك. See, this is permissible, but that's not the sunnah. The sunnah is to widen your arms. So your arms should be further away from your torso. طيب. And also your thighs should move away from your stomach in sujood. بعد أيوة أحسنت ما شاء الله. This is how it's supposed to be. But in congregation you cannot do this. Next to you, خلاص, you do this. So it's not the sunnah to do this in congregation. Say I'm following the sunnah. You'll harm the brother sitting next to you. But praying by yourself, look at the sujood. Look at the thighs. The thighs are not touching the stomach, and the hands are away from the arms are away from the torso. This is the sunnah. Okay. Toes on the ground facing the qibla. For sujood, toes on the ground facing the qibla. Yes. Some people it's a bit challenging. This what? Look, هقول بعض الناس صعب عليهم. Okay. So yes. طيب, sitting افتراش. شوف الجهة روح شوف هناك يجلس افتراش. Yes. So between the two sajdas, look at the left foot placing hands on thighs when sitting between the sajdas, and for tashahhud, no, not this. Okay, sitting iftirash, sitting on left foot, sitting on left foot while the right foot is straightened. Look at the right foot. The right foot is straightened. طيب. This is in every tashahhud. The sunnah. In the final tashahhud, حين تورك. Left foot, look at the left foot. It's under the right leg. Left foot is under the right leg, and his bottom is touching the ground. This is how it should be. This is the sunnah if you're able to do it. But in jama'ah, if you're next to each other, and then you want to do this, you'll sit on your brother. And some people, they do this and then they end up sitting on their brother's thighs because there's no space. طيب, so don't do this. طيب, don't do this. At least do, what's it called? Iftirash. Do iftirash. So left foot, you sit on the left foot and the right foot is straightened. If you can do this, at least this is also the sunnah. Placing hands on thighs when sitting between the two sajdas for tashahhud and fingers together except in tashahhud. Fingers together like this. So in sitting between the two tashahhuds, you put your hands on your thighs, fingers are like this. طيب, except for tashahhud. Tashahhud, left hand on the thigh, right hand doing this. Now here there's some opinions. Is it like this or can it also be done so just like this, for example? But the narrations of this is يعني authentic, صح? حلقة, yeah. Like this. طيب, doing this. And then the matter of moving the finger or not, some of them said no, moving is weak because it's ma'lul. All the narrations, some said no, moving, a person should move while doing dua. The madhabs, they say only you move when saying ashhadu an la ilaha. These matters, inshallah, we don't be too strict in these matters. We're not too strict. As long as you're sitting, you moved your finger, khas, you apply the sunnah. And of course, turning the head left and right, or first right, and then left in taslim. Interesting. So if a person said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, did he do the two taslimas or not? So after finishing prayer, he did the Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. He didn't do this. So is his taslim valid or not? Now we're talking about the preferred actions. We said of the preferred actions, isn't taslim turning your head right and left? Yes, the pillar is to say it. But if a person, let's say he did this but he did not say it, no, he did not say it. But if he said Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum, khas, he did say it, even though he did not move his head.
Even one of the awjah of taslim.
Once only? Once only on the right?
You just do tawajjuh towards the
Yeah, no, I'm saying if he did not do anything. Nothing. And he just said, so no action. Only, we said this is of the preferred actions. هذا هو المستحبات. طيب, disliked actions in prayer. Coming to pray, لا صلاة بحضرة الطعام ولا هو يدافع الأخبثان. So, funny story. Last week, I was in the elevator, I was asking one of my neighbors, I saw his son. I said, Ya akhi, where's your younger son? Like he's celebrating his birthday upstairs with the cake. And he can't come to prayer because the cake is in front of him. So I said, Subhanallah, yani, لا صلاة بحضرة الطعام. The birthday cake. Allah. So subhanallah, yani, if a person is hungry, yani, my son, for example, he's waiting for his food. He's waiting, he's like, I'm hungry 1 hour before prayer. And then when the adhan started, the iqamah is going to start. It's like, I'm very hungry. The food came. No way can I tell him, leave the food, go and pray. He's not going to concentrate in his prayer. And that's not the sunnah. He's hungry and he's in need of this food. And this food is ready in front of him. No, here we say eat that food because it's going to affect his concentration. Finish, then go and pray. لا صلاة بحضرة الطعام ولا هو يدافع الأخبثان. So if you were really hungry and you needed this food, طيب, and the food is in front of you now, and then the iqamah started, no. Eat. You don't need to eat the whole meal. If you eat and you feel, alhamdulillah, now I can go and concentrate in prayer, go. But sitting and say, for example, no, I'll eat, and then there's dessert. Well, I can't concentrate without dessert. And then you eat dessert, and then you say, still, yeah. No, this is at least with the amount that you'll feel that, alhamdulillah, now you can concentrate on your prayer. Now you can concentrate on your prayer. But let's say that the food is not ready. So the wife is in the kitchen cooking. It's not going to be ready until after prayer. So don't wait. Yani, go pray. Here, there is nothing in front of you. So if the food was in front of you and it's ready and you needed it, but if the food was there and also you felt full, it's okay with you, go and pray. But so, subhanallah, look at this. All of these rulings, لا صلاة بحضرة الطعام ولا هو يدافع الأخبثان. You need to use the toilet, don't come to the prayer. Even if you miss at the opening takbir, no problem. Go to the toilet so that you come and concentrate. All of these things pointing to what?
Concentration.
أيوة, أحسنت. Concentration in prayer, awareness, خشوع. It's not the actions. Yani, the whole point of this prayer is to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you're praying and you're not in the state of khushu', what are you doing? The whole point of you coming here, all these rulings, لا صلاة بحضر الطعام ولا هو يدافع الأخبثان. And the person eating garlic or what's it called, onions, has a bad breath, he should not enter the masjid. And subhanallah, all these things for what? For you to concentrate in salah. And also the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ mentioning that if a person enters salah, he leaves his salah and nothing is written for him for salah except sometimes 9th of his prayer, 8th of his prayer, 6th of his prayer, 5th of his prayer, half of his prayer. Yani, this is your reward. You might pray the full prayer, but you only get half of it. You only get maybe a 10th of it, depending on how much were you aware. Some people ask this question, what is khushu' in prayer? So I want to have khushu'. Concentrate on what you're saying and what you're doing. There's nothing more. So you concentrate when you're reciting Fatiha or the Imam is reciting Fatiha. Listen to his recitation. Do not daydream. Do not think about something else. That's why it's important to understand the meanings of Fatiha, because when the Imam is reciting it, the Fatiha is repeated. So guaranteed, if you understand the meanings of Fatiha, guaranteed the Imam is going to recite it. You contemplate on these meanings, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Guide us to the straight path. You alone we seek aid, you alone we worship. Concentrate on these meanings. Takbir. The takbir is repeated so many times in prayer. Allahu Akbar. What does it mean? Allah is greater than everything. It's a reminder, no matter what you're thinking about, Allahu Akbar. Ya Allah, Allah is greater. No matter how challenging this problem is, Allahu Akbar. Oof, yes, definitely. Allah is greater. Allah Azza wa Jal will find a solution. Allah Azza wa Jal will relieve this problem, will remove this problem. But this is a reminder. That's why these prayers are important to be prayed at its time. So you cannot delay the prayer outside the time. You mentioned this in prayer. Why? To connect with Allah in these 5 times. To remind yourself that you're a worshipper of Allah. A person could be about to do a sin. The adhan starts. He goes, he does wudu. He goes and he stands up in front of his creator. Doing salah. This is refresh. You're remembering who you are, remembering what are you doing, remembering the akhirah, remembering, you're standing up in front of Allah, you're going to stand up in front of Him on the Day of Judgment. Remembering all of these things in prayer. That's why the most important objective in prayer is dhikri. وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي. And also in the salat تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. The objective, the main objective of prayer, yes, it prevents from major and minor sins, but the main objective of prayer is remembrance of Allah. This specific remembrance. That's why the more that you remember Allah in your worship, the more reward that you get. The more reward that you get. And we're all guilty of this. Nobody has a complete prayer. But if you're able to complete your prayer, wallahi, you'll find the effects. After you do salam alaikum wa rahmatullah, you'll find you're different. You're less likely to do sin. Because in the salat tanha al-fahsha wal-munkar. And the weaker your prayer is, it makes no effect. If you're the same person before entering prayer, the same person leaving prayer, and there's an issue with your prayer. And we're all guilty of this. So a person, to make up for this, do a lot of nafil. Do a lot of nafil. And sometimes, subhanAllah, you might be praying in jama'ah, there might be some issues, it happens. AC too strong. No AC over there. A child was crying in the masjid, you were not able. This is normal. It happened at the times of the companions. It happens now. Something happened in the masjid. Wallahi, a person next to you, very bad smell, you were not able to concentrate. These things happen. And it definitely decreases the reward. But to make up for this, increase in nafil. And that's why the whole point, you finish your prayer. The first thing that you do, what? Istighfar. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. 3 times. This is the sunnah. Your prayer is not complete. So you do istighfar, seek forgiveness from Allah. And yes, I worship you, but my worship is lacking. It's like teaching you to always do istighfar after your worship, especially in qiyam. You do qiyamul layl. What is the sunnah, the final third, the final moment? To do istighfar. وَبِالْأَسْحَارِ هُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. The end of the night, they do istighfar. Ibn Kathir said they increase their worship at night, and when it's close to Fajr, they keep on doing istighfar for their worship that they did. The worship that they did, the qiyamul layl, hours, and then they do istighfar, because, we did nothing. We did nothing for you, Allah. We gave you nothing. What did we give you? A worship that, well, we're not happy with this. This is what we're able, but we're not happy with this. So we do istighfar to make up for this. So subhanAllah, it's very important, this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. So لا صلاة بحضر الطعام ولا هو دافع الأخبثان. ونهى عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام نهي عن الخصر في الصلاة. To put your hands on your hips in prayer. طيب, the following actions are disliked in prayer. We will just finish this inshallah. Looking left and right in prayer. So you're worshipping Allah, you're doing your prayer, look in front, or you're looking at the place of sujood. Now look, depending on the situation, sometimes it's better to look in front. There's a child, for example. Somebody has a child that's in front of you. So looking down, you're going to look at the child. So you look in front. Because there's something that's... and sometimes, subhanAllah, looking in front, the exaggeration, some decorations in masjids, it might even, you will not be able to concentrate. Sometimes the mats, all types of decorations, you look at this, you get lost. You get lost in the design and you don't concentrate as much. You might be saying, Sheikh, then if you're saying that it doesn't make any difference, that means, I don't know if you know what we talk about when we talk about khushu'. Because the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ was wearing something that had some decorations and it affected his khushu' and prayer. It affected his khushu' and prayer. Look at this. At that time, it made a difference in his khushu'. So he did not want this. He removed it and he asked for another garment to wear so that it did not affect his prayer. SubhanAllah. So the following actions, Alhamdulillah. طيب, reciting. Okay, so the following actions are disliked in prayer.
Can I close my eyes?
Okay, closing your eyes, some of them said if there's a need, it's okay. If there was no need, it's better not to. So you don't get used to closing your eyes every time unless there's a need. Unless there's a need, and it happens, subhanAllah, as I told you yesterday, there's a child moving, putting his hands for you cannot, no way can you concentrate. Close your eyes, what do we do? What do we? You can't run away, you're in the prayer. And you want to concentrate as much. But making it a habit or thinking that closing the eyes is better, this is where it's a problem. But if you say that, no, I don't feel that closing my eyes, but sometimes I need it because I cannot concentrate, this thing is in front of me. Okay? Even though closing your eyes by default, some of the early scholars said, this is similar to the actions of the Jews. They said this. But as I mentioned, if there was a need or something in front of you did, then khalas. So of the disliked actions, in the first 2 units, reciting only Fatiha. So if the Imam recited only Salat al-Fajr, recited Surah al-Fatiha, then he did ruku'. Is the prayer valid or not? Did he miss any rukun, any pillar? No. Did he miss any obligation? No. What did he miss? He missed something mustahab. So reciting only Fatiha, it's disliked to do so. It's disliked. His prayer is valid, but it's disliked. We said placing hands on the hips in prayer, because this is, what kind of a standard? When you do this in front of someone, it means that you're bored. It means that you're bored. So you're doing this in prayer? In prayer, you're doing this. Imagine, if you said this, it's no adab. If a person is doing this in front of someone, saying, have some respect. In prayer, doing this, it's definitely, disliked. The least that we can say is disliked. Laying your forearms on the ground in sujood. Don't do that. This is not to do in prayer. So the forearms are on the ground. Sometimes you're pushed. You have nowhere else to do. Sometimes you're pushed, but normally your forearms should not be touching. So if it was a little bit elevated, it's not touching the ground. This is and if it did touch the ground, it's not your prayer is invalid. It's that you did then disliked action. Yes.
For the female, should it touch?
Females similar to males. Anything, subhanAllah, they said anything, of course, praying in the need of food, and food is available. So praying in the need of food, and food is available. We mentioned this. And of course they said anything that breaks one khushu' and concentration in prayer. I don't know, some people, TV, I don't know, nowadays, and the computer is on, you're listening to an interview and you're doing your worship. Doesn't make sense. Nowhere you're concentrating and you're listening. Or you have, for example, your kids playing and you're able to do it in another place. They're playing, they're saying things. You cannot concentrate because, or someone doing tasmi' in a loud voice and you're praying. And subhanAllah, it definitely affects your prayer. Turning your head in prayer, we said this is also disliked. طيب. Final point, khushu' is awareness. It's not, some people think that khushu' is an obligation. It's impossible because khushu' is not something that everyone can achieve all the time, 100%. It's lacking. So khushu' is preferred. Definitely, it's rewarding. طيب. Khushu' is what dictates the reward in prayer. The more khushu' you have in your prayer, the more effect, the more reward you get, and the more benefit you get from prayer. The less khushu', subhanallah, the less reward, but still your prayer is valid. طيب. With this we will end, inshallah. Next week we will start actions that invalidate the prayer. Actions that invalidate the prayer. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير.